Welcome to the Out on a Limb podcast. We are all interconnected to a greater web of consciousness. Our aim is to open your mind to a new world through having open-minded discussions about what we perceive our reality to be.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts, Will, Allison, and Samantha. And I'm feeling so much better. Thank you for asking.
Well, you didn't give us a chance.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh, you guys have no idea. Because the last time we got together, we tried to do 3. I think we barely got through 1.
Barely got through 1.
And all I could think of the whole podcast was, please don't cough.
Right.
Because it was just horrendous. I just feel so good. Now, I don't know when this will air. But this is the first time we've gotten together when I haven't been sick in a while, right?
Probably a month. Yeah. Probably a month at least.
Well, it was the last time we recorded was the
Blossom.
Yeah, what am I trying to say?
The eclipse. The eclipse.
Yeah, the eclipse.
Yeah.
And it was challenging, so it just feels so good to be back to my normal self.
So we go from eclipse to solar flares,
right,
and geomagnetic
blowing
storm.
Blowing our planet up.
Nothing's happened since.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and that's what we wanted to talk about today. Were a couple of these interesting events that are happening and some things we've been getting in sessions and all kinds of good stuff. So this is Mother's Day weekend, at least in the U.S. Because I think they celebrate it on a different day in the U.K. Mother's Day, yeah.
I have no idea.
At any rate, with it came in a geomagnetic storm, the likes of which we have not seen in 21 years, is what I heard. It started Friday, bombarding us. A lot of people were knocked on their butt.
The solar flare activity is on
it was building.
Yeah, but it's usually on 11-year cycle.
Right.
So every 11 years we get blasted, but not to this extent. So, yeah.
Right. So it must have been 2 of those cycles that this is culminating in this big one here.
Right.
And of course, people speculate, is that leading up to the big event wave, the one-off? And I want to talk about that later.
We keep wondering
in the show.
And so if you see any technical glitches, it's probably because of the solar flares are taking place.
Hey, it's a good excuse. Yeah. It's either the eclipse or the solstice or the something, right?
It's something.
It's always something.
It's not our problem.
No.
Yeah. So we have a geomagnetic storm. People are starting to see what they call the northern lights or the aurora borealis, which is normally seen around Iceland and Norway and all of those. And
dipping down into parts of Canada,
and Alaska and stuff like that.
So did you go out and see them last night?
I did.
We tried.
I was out at about 9:30-ish and taking some pictures, and I did catch a little purplish pinkish hue, just ever so faint in the image.
Well, that was early in the evening.
It was early in the evening.
But then you got up and went out, at 1?
Yeah, I didn't see anything, but I tried to take another picture, didn't see anything, but I did notice
Can you... That's all I got. Like I said to Brody, that's weird. It's like sorry.
Like a purple haze.
It's normal here, but it's purplish. That must just be my phone doing that.
No,
and then when I saw everyone else's pictures, I was like, oh my God, we were seen.
Yeah. And so I woke up to seeing a lot of local people posting just some very phenomenal colors. Yeah, for sure.
Purples and pinks and oh my gosh.
In our lifetime. I would have never imagined.
Now I've been in Iceland. Was it Iceland? I think it was Iceland. Tromsø. No, it was Norway. Tromsø, Norway. And I did see the where it's swirling and it's doing its thing, and it is the eeriest, weirdest thing but it just takes your breath away because you're looking at something that is just mind-blowing. It's absolutely just mind-blowing.
Wow. So think if you were indigenous and you had none of this information out there, but you're down here and you've never seen something like this, and you look up in the sky and the sky is colorful
on fire, right? Yeah.
I can't even just take out all the hazy, wavy things. Just what we were seeing last night.
Right.
You would just think, is the world coming to an end?
Right.
Is a god about to descend?
Right. That's why people were superstitious and fearful.
Yeah.
But also spiritual, and those that were in touch and in tune probably understood.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they knew something was going on, and it was for sure.
Yeah.
But the same way with the astrological stuff moving and the way things line up or eclipses and things like that. They didn't have internet to go look it up.
Yeah.
Well,
or a book.
Not the true sense of internet, but they had
the internet.
Right.
Internet. That's what they had. Oh my gosh.
Try to feel I'm here all week.
He's so pleased with himself.
Right? So one of the things that I wanted to mention is about these vortices and things that are happening with the Earth. And this is kind of a good segue into that, is this energy that's hitting the planet. So this energy that's hitting the planet is upgrading us. It's making changes. If you haven't seen Amanda Lawrence, or we've talked about her before, if you're not following her, it's a good idea to follow her, even though a lot of the stuff can be over your head. It's over my head sometimes. But it is interesting stuff to sort of just let it come in, and if it resonates, otherwise let it out. But she's talking about the differences between the energies hitting the planet and understanding what those feel like. But what does it feel like when your brain is recalibrating? Now, many of you are already having this consciousness upgrade, moving into the 5D, for example. I know at least one or two friends of ours in our circle who are. And so that is what she says, it's a recalibration of your brain. So it's your brain actually changing to be able to incorporate the higher hertz frequencies that have already been on the planet, but we couldn't interpret them through our brain because we weren't at that consciousness level. So in other words, a recalibration of your brain is what happens when you move into higher consciousness. And so understanding the difference between that and then just these energy waves that are coming is important. So her post today, which is, what is it today, the 12th?
11th. Today's the 11th.
May 11th, if you need to go back and look at that. Talks about that. And in that post, she also says she's getting ready to do a video, and she may have already done this by the time this airs, but she's going to do a video talking about the precursors to the event wave.
We always sit there on pins and needles waiting to hear, because she is aware of all of this, but she's like, but it's not time for me to release it yet. And you're like, yes, it is.
Yes.
Go for it. Give us a little bit, a crumb.
Just a hint.
So she gets visions and all of this information, and she releases it when she's prompted to. She's very, with integrity. I like her a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Not just sensational, but she's one of the few that has consistently talked about this event wave. Which was a big subject of the origin story because it was a fascination of mine, and I asked a lot of questions about that. So that's still on the horizon, not very far off, I don't think. And she has said all along that she was told there'd be a certain color to the energies that are coming in, and she can sense those colors of the energies. So she will let us know when the event wave is imminent. So if you're not following her, you probably need to.
If this sort of stuff interests you.
Yeah. So that's exciting.
I feel like I need to get my life jacket out of the, just in case we have to go man over.
It's an event wave, not a tidal wave.
Yeah. Energetic. Go get your, what is it, your Faraday cage.
My Faraday cage,
of course, I want to be there to feel, whatever happens, I want to feel it. Now, so are we going to mention the video that you had suggested in one of our groups last night? The one with, is his name Dan?
His name, it was Andrew, and he is now going by Amon, I think. And Candace? Oh, no, not that one.
No, I'm talking about the guy with Brett Weinstein.
Yeah. It's on my list right here.
Oh, good. Okay.
That was next. Good segue, Samantha. Nice job.
Are we going to talk about the thing that's right here in front of my eyes that I should have noticed?
No, that's okay. So we've talked about this guy before, Ben. I think his name is Ben.
Oh, Ben, that's
from Suspicious Observers.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's really got his finger on the pulse of all of this, the geomagnetic storms and the pole flips and all of that kind of stuff. The only thing, the hesitation that I have with him is because he can be a bit sensationalist and, in my opinion, fear-mongering.
But that's what draws a crowd. So, I mean, that's what draws a crowd.
Yeah, but he does short snippets. They're like 3 minutes at a time. Every day he does a daily briefing.
Well, one of the things that kind of amazed me is in the conversation that I saw him having with Brett Weinstein, he would pull okay, well, in the paper that was written in such and such a date, and like these papers, they're always like the effects of radiation on the geomagnetic of the east side of the, they're like several,
very scientific,
paragraphs long, just for the title. And so but he wasn't going, okay, I want to mention this,
it's all there. It's all locked away in there. It's like how Brett can just.
And that's why he's a good match for Brett.
Yeah, Brett has so much locked away in there that he can just spool it out when it's necessary.
So that's what we've talked about too, is the Dark Horse podcast with Brett Weinstein and his wife, Heather Hying, who are two evolutionary biologists. They're very intelligent, but fascinating conversations.
So the two of these guys together, That was such a fascinating.
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook and we're all talking about the geomagnetic storm, and somebody in our group mentioned, "Oh, have you seen what Ben put out?" And I'm like, no, I haven't, because he's suspicious observers, and I don't. Anyway, then I go and I'm perusing YouTube, and I see my favorite Brett Weinstein is interviewing him at that moment. There's an interview of Brett Weinstein. So maybe that's a sign. Interviewing Ben. So if Ben was invited, then Brett did his due diligence and found that Ben was a worthy adversary or contributor, because Brett doesn't talk to dummies.
Yeah. And the conversation was so incredibly intense.
So you watched it. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I did. I watched the whole thing.
Give us the snippet. What were the highlights?
Okay. Well, I thought he did. I didn't feel like he was being sensational about anything. I felt like the way he was presenting things was in a very much a matter of course. Here's this. Whenever he would get a little too far, Brett would stop him. My good friend Brett, I'm calling him his first name, Mr. Weinstein. Right. Yeah. But he would stop him and just go, okay, now for people who don't understand this. So, they made sure that there was enough of a clarification.
He'd bring it down to layman's terms to really digest it.
Good, because otherwise you're snoozing.
Yeah, but Ben wasn't too far out there. But what was interesting, just trying to remember some of the little bits, like he did a good job describing what the significance of this geomagnetic storm. Now, I can't remember if Ben is one of the main people who talk about this. And again, and he did, Ben kept saying, hey, don't let this, this, you're all good. Don't worry about this. But he's the one that's been talking about, how the polar shifts.
And that's where I find him to be too sensational.
But he wasn't in this. Okay. And he was explaining, he said, because the thing is he backed up everything scientifically. Yeah. He's like, how do you take, I remember, and this was just a part of the whole thing about the significance of the geomagnetic storms. The last one that happened was the
Carrington event.
Yeah, the Carrington event, which they keep citing back to
1886 or something.
And how you can see how this has happened like every 6,000 years of the polar shift. So the geomagnetic storm is one of the indicators that this is coming. It's just another thing to support his hypothesis. Of this happening. It doesn't mean that the earth just goes boom, like he said, it's the earth stays as it is. It's just the
core flips, the iron core flips, which then offsets the whole magnetic pole.
Which does affect things physically,
Sure.
He did say, he said, if you're in North America, he's like, you're probably in the safest place you could be for it. But he's like, understand there's also, electricity is going to get affected. They don't, there's a lot of things they don't know. But anyway, okay. So there were several main things he talked about. One was the geomagnetic storm and the importance of that. The other one was, how this is kind of another signal about the polar shift. And then the other thing, what was the other one? Was it him who talked about? Yeah, I think it was. He was referencing the other planets, but I'm pretty certain it was him because I mean, it was a 2-hour interview. So I can't imagine I got anything else in there. Because then there's this thing about on June 3rd, where we're going to have all the planets line up.
Oh, another synchronous event where they all line up in a line.
Well, they're going to line up. The significance of this event is that they all line up in such a way that we're going to be able to see the supposed other planet that we thought we might see during the eclipse.
Right, that's right.
So we should be able to see this.
And he said that too, you think?
I thought he said that, and I thought it was him. It could be wrong. And I'll have to go back and look at my my order of how I watch things. But that you could see each planet. Yeah, I'm pretty certain it was him. But you could see how each planet was just a different stage of Earth's life cycle.
Oh, wow.
Like this planet's been going through this and this planet's been going through that. And so I'm hearing all of this stuff and my brain's just going, whoa. And then they post the first images of Mercury that have ever been seen. So we now have pictures, close-up pictures of Mercury.
But wasn't it or was it Venus? Was it Mercury or Venus that the Russians dropped a probe onto, and there were photographs from one of them?
That might
Is
be
that
Venus.
what the pictures are then?
Well, I don't know.
Mercury?
I haven't seen the Mercury pictures.
Yeah,
I didn't even know I didn't even know
Mercury-
we were sending a probe to Mercury.
Well, and what's great?
Are we or some other?
Or meaning humans.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is that you can see from this picture that it has the crater things. Now, I don't know if it's all gaseous or what it is, but you can see, where
impact zones.
Yeah, like it's just so crazy, and also now you're seeing pictures of Jupiter. What it looks like up close. So it's like we're getting this better understanding, which only leads to more questions.
Right, and it's like, excuse me, that's the whole, the James Webb Telescope. I mean, it took normal terrestrial-based telescopes. We went to the Hubble scope, and you saw images that had to be computer regenerated because of whatever. And now you got the James Webb out there that it's like going from, I don't know, like
a Polaroid camera.
It's like eight pixel gameplay, jumping into the future into 4K high resolution, of the universe.
And if you're fascinated by that stuff at all, the documentary that they did on it.
I haven't watched it yet. I've been wanting to watch that.
Well, okay, I won't tell you the surprise ending. But anyway, like it just takes these people through, like they've devoted literally their lives.
The lifetime,
not knowing, like each stage was so critical, and to have each thing go, it went right. That's why we have the pictures.
Right.
But to see each stage, like just suddenly everybody's like, my part is done. It worked.
Right,
And then you see the next team going, okay, now they're up. Is their part going to work?
Documentary. What's the documentary about?
It's about the
James Webb's telescope. Yeah, it's on Netflix. Yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
I forgot the name of it.
And then you hear these things about rockets to the moon, even Elon Musk's rockets to the moon. And to me, knowing what I know now, I'm thinking it's still so prehistoric.
Well,
even all these things that we think we're advancing and we're yay humans.
Many of you may be Rogan fans, but he just interviewed, and I don't have the name off the top of my head because it's been about 4 podcasts back that I've listened to him. But he was a lifelong NASA enthusiast. I mean, he was immersed in it and just was a true believer. But then he got into filmmaking and everything else, and now he is
jaded.
He is and I'll tell you, I mean, now this is what I love about Rogan. He will push back. He will play that devil's advocate all day long, and he was pushing on him. And there were times I was getting frustrated at the guy because he just stuck to his guns on a certain phrase that he had used. But there was some very compelling information that he would bring forward that I'm like, that's quite interesting. And
Joe Rogan was bringing
no,
forward?
this fella,
Basically saying that we didn't land.
That we didn't go to the moon, right? We didn't land on the moon, and he's like,
there's some questionable things
he
there.
said, think of it this way. I mean, we right now are wanting to go back to the moon, and we have a trillion exponent of technology ahead of what we had in 67, 68, right?
Yeah.
What they had to take that rocket to the moon, our iPhones have, right?
Yeah.
All that technology in all those rooms now is in our phone. And they were able, and as he said, they did it on the first try.
Yeah.
So it's like, and now we've been trying, and we're just not.
Well, all the material apparently was misplaced.
Yes,
they lost all the material.
Or destroyed. Yep.
And here's one of the other ones that I thought was interesting. When you see that first step for mankind, that whole video of him stepping down, like, what did they do? They had to have gotten out, placed the camera
Right.
Like, if you look at it, it was a tin can. Like, so you're going to go up and secure the camera. Like, that's what they were thinking of when they went up there.
He had a selfie stick.
So
Come on now, he was holding it up, a selfie stick.
So the whole thing, it's just kind of, it begs incredulity.
What about the flag?
Is that a word?
What about the flag that blows when there's no wind or something?
Yeah,
right? That's the part that
that's the other one.
He talks about that too. I mean, it's a very if you want to go down that rabbit hole, Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience on what is it, Spotify, and just find that episode and just sit and listen.
And I think it's important to at least be open and consider, because we've had our, the wool pulled over our eyes so many times now. And if you go back to that period of time, and I'm not saying I believe one way or the other, I honestly, haven't gone down there far enough, but the fact that maybe it could be, I don't like using the word hoax. I think if you go back to that period of time, it was very significant and important that each nation was trying to say, we're the first to have done this. So there was a lot of ego, there was a lot of pride, but the posturing and authority, it just.
And as he said it's what bound the nation together at that point, and it still does. I mean,
and that's what's important to remember, is that even if it's for a good reason that we're being propagandized against or lied to, that's still not right. It's not fair. Right. Because you don't trust the human population enough to let us make our own decision about what's going on.
But it had nothing to do with us. They were posturing for other countries.
True, but there are cases where three-letter organizations lie to us for our own good.
And I hope we would be able to handle the truth.
Hopefully this doesn't get us kicked off of YT. We weren't intending to go down that rabbit hole. But anyway.
Hey, this is what happens.
Brett talked about all of this stuff. He talked about
this is what happens with stream of consciousness.
Yes.
But I think there was one other thing where somebody said one of the astronauts who's since deceased was on one of the talk shows, I'm talking about. And
why do they all go crazy?
And he revealed, like he actually said it, like, do you really think we went to,
and they'll just say he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, who was it? Buzz Aldrin that apparently lost his mind after he went down to Antarctica to supposedly see the ETs that are down there or whatever.
Yeah.
So did J.K., politician. J.K., look him up. Kerry. He went down to Antarctica too for some crazy reason. I'm paranoid. I don't want to get us.
We're going to start doing like sign language.
Right.
I don't want to get us kicked off of here.
But so the other thing about going back to the Brett Weinstein thing, what Ben was talking about, which was, I kept thinking of the origin story in this, because how they talk about how this galaxy is created and so forth and meant for us and stuff. And he was talking about, these certain waves that go through and how they can, they start within our galaxy, but they're going so far beyond. And how do you get them to continue out? They have to keep getting powered up, because otherwise waves get smaller. But they found that it was staying consistent, sometimes growing stronger. And then, then it's kind of like, this isn't unique to our system. There's got to be something powering that, like, an extender kind of thing. So what forces are out there? Like, you have to stop and realize that there's so much more going on. And the other thing he said, like, it was really cool, because we
might have to listen to that one.
Well, it made the whole, like, everything with the origin story, like, you kind of go, because he said he made a case for that the carbon dating versus what's the other kind of dating? There's carbon dating, and I'd not heard of this other one, not lithium, but
I don't know.
There's another kind of dating, and he says is more accurate actually than carbon dating, and that he said they honestly can't give you a date on anything. He said, just forget it. They can't date it.
Really?
It's all a lie.
Maybe I need to send him a copy of my book.
Maybe, yes. Oh, look, she's like, I don't really, he sensationalizes everything, but maybe he needs my book now.
Right.
But he said, and what proved that hypothesis was that somebody set the carbon dater people, the scientists up to test something, and it was something that was created in this lifetime, or last generation, and they dated it way back, and it's like, nope, this,
So they've already been debunked.
Yeah. And so, when you're like, I think I follow Graham Hancock. Like, I really enjoy his stuff and what he uses to date things back, and and all of these different discoveries. They even got into. They didn't talk about Darren Q. In Turkey.
Yeah.
That's under like the. Okay, so they were talking about another one, cave dwellers that, went underground and stuff. Yeah. And so they referenced all of that as well. Like, so it was really going back into, we really don't know
what's going on.
That's an important.
We're just scratching the surface of what we actually know.
Well, and
that's
I think
really
where
important.
he was, I don't know, but where I was kind of going, are you going to say this? Or I'm waiting to hear it, is that, like what's going on with the planets around us is a lesson to what, how many humans will survive, how many will go to the next planet that's hospitable, how they'd come from the previous planet,
You're just leapfrogging into the next generational experience.
Now, I will say this part of it towards the end, as they started talking about all this stuff and the preponderance of the evidence leading towards, the shift in the poles and, and how that can affect humanity and all that kind of stuff. And also with the geomagnetic storm and how that could produce like an EMP event. They did talk about, and Brett was pushing on this, about survival techniques.
Oh, yeah.
But he was just being really kind of reasonable about it. Ben was like, he was just kind of going, if you prepare for this and you got all that done, then you go, well, what else do I, well, okay, if this happens, then I need to do this. He goes, you can only go so far down. So just make sure you're going to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Just comfortable is, start with that, because it's really, all bets are off. Nobody really knows what's going to happen.
It's the same way that, for us that live here on the East Coast, Southern East Coast mainly, and we prepare each year before the 1st of June for the hurricane season.
Yeah.
We put our hurricane boxes together, we put our flashlights, our batteries. Supposedly. And I have some supplies that I stock and I keep on hand, and fresh up on gas and do all that mess. And that's just that's the really primarily it's the Coast Guard. Because most of my career has been on the Southeast Coast, and at that point, that's all we do from June until December is keep everything topped off.
True.
We keep everything in line, ready to go, just in the case event, right? So we could have everything that we need: a generator that runs, boxes of food, batteries, all that stuff. Hurricane happens, all of that goes out the window because you have no idea what's going to happen at that point.
Right, like Hugo was.
You stay as long as you can, and then you know that you make that decision ahead of time that there's a certain time at which you're going to go.
Yeah, there's a threshold point that you have to leave or ride it out. So it doesn't matter what the event is or what circumstance it is. Be prepared. Have minimal amount of preparedness for anything that's taking place.
The only thing I'll say about all of this is that with regard to the pole shift, Ben seems to think that it's going to happen sooner rather than later. All of the channeled information that we have gotten from Enoch and others is that it will be quite a ways in humanity's future. And from what I gather, the population will already have thinned by then. For a variety of reasons that is way beyond this episode, but you can probably guess some of those. And so our population is declining, and it will continue to decline. And I think it'll be fewer humans that need to worry about surviving a pole shift. And it probably will affect migratory patterns or where we're living anyhow.
Oh, that's a huge thing. Yeah.
It's not going to be 8 billion people trying to figure out how to survive a pole flip. No. So that's, I think, where Ben and I differ a bit.
But too, that's I'll say the maximum, right? The full pole flip. But I think, in the rest of our lifetime, our children's lifetime.
Well, it is, isn't it? Flipping a little bit already?
It's moving incrementally. It does this. He says it's never been just straight up and down. It always wobbles.
It wobbles. And even like in 87, I'm trying to date myself here when I first joined the Coast Guard, 87, 88, when I did my tour on the icebreaker. We went up into the Arctic, up to the physical North Pole, which is different than the magnetic North Pole.
Yeah.
And as you draw closer to that physical North Pole, there's anomalous magnetic activity that takes place that you can no longer use magnetic compasses because there's instability at the pole. And so the magnetic pole, I forgot what the distance was from the physical, what we consider the physical North Pole, the axes. And it was probably 2 weeks before we even got to that point. We had to basically cover compasses or just, keep them out of our view as far as navigation. That's when we had to bring on or, utilize all of the gyroscopic stuff that then brings you into a true north versus a magnetic north. And that's how we had to navigate at that point. So I'm thinking to myself at that, you know, as I grew and as I, you know, grew in my career and now into this stuff, is this aspect of navigation, you know, true versus magnetic. And it's easy enough when you're farther from the pole, but those explorers that were up there, you know, you can't use a compass. So how do you navigate? You know, it's a whole weird thing. And it's, you know, then, you know, because we can sense those magnetic poles, we can sense that as you grow closer to it. So how do you, I mean, if this begins to shift or begins to wobble out of balance, what is that going to do to our own, you know?
Well, they say we have that same thing. Well, not everybody. Some people have more of it than others. I remember.
Oh, you put me into a shopping mall. I lose all bearing.
Oh, I don't. Like I can. I just sense. Okay, this is this. This is that. Like I have this thing about direction. So, but we have the same thing that the birds have, which is that magnetic whatever. But some people have a lot more of it, and some people just have a lot less, which is why some people just say, "Oh, I'm lousy with sense of direction." But that was another point that he made. He mentioned that, you know, that there's a possibility, who knows, that maybe where we talk about the Bermuda Triangle, that could have been one of the main poles during a period of time. And that's why, and what I was thinking is, I remember him saying that. I cannot remember, I thought he said something about it, but maybe not, but that there was a matching thing on the other side of the earth, you know, to fit with that. But I don't remember if I was thinking.
Well, that would be the evidence he would need to balance that theory.
Yeah. And so then one other last thing that he was leaving people with is kind of like, and again, this is not, it's just to question things, to stop putting your head in the sand and act like, oh, you know, everything that, you know, that we're being told is just straightforward and they have our best interests at heart. A lot of it is, what are you going to do? Like, you know, we can't tell mass populations, whatever, you know, but what he was saying, both he and Brett, were like, okay, so isn't it interesting? Here we're seeing this stuff. There's evidence of this stuff. There is something going on. And yet our government's not talking about it at all. It's not part of the conversation, you know, to out public. And yet he said, realize that there's some things that have been done behind the scenes over the past decade or so, 2 decades. They've moved one of the world seed banks to North America.
Oh, right.
Oh, really?
So this is supporting his
because it was in Norway,
theory.
Norway or Iceland. No, Norway. It was in Norway for
They've moved it to North America, and people like, you know, like Bill Gates have bought up a bunch of farmland. You know, there's like all of these, and a lot of these people are moving their businesses to North America. Like he's like, just look at the trajectory, you could say the migratory pattern of those economics. In the know. And that doesn't mean like, you know, these people think long range. You know, it's not just this lifetime, how am I going to secure, you know, my legacy for however long? And so it just
fascinating.
Who knows what'll happen? And here's the thing: the worst thing that could happen is that you die, and that's not the worst thing. You know, it's like we're eternal. We're going to go on. I would prefer to be here and see what's going to happen.
Me too.
You know,
but not in an apocalyptic kind of movie scenario where you're fighting the zombies for your life. Forget about it.
I just watched one of the Mad Max movies. I'm like, you know,
no.
Really? Like, I'm just
hitting the reset button. I'll come back.
I'm resourceful enough. I can make a Mad Max wagon and, you know, roll around the desert.
But it's just, I think that it's helpful to consider this kind of stuff because it unhinges your mind. I don't mean unhinge like crazy, but it unhinges your mind from
that too,
from complacency you know, and like we are being, I think that we are being dulled into our existence.
Oh yeah.
And we're meant to just kind of go on remote control and take this stuff and be happy with it.
Oh yeah.
And that is, okay, so there are a lot of humans that's comfortable. And I don't know if that means that they're more developed or less developed, you know, spiritually, or what I can't begin to. I'm not a social, you know, studies expert or whatever it is, but it's, But the fact is, we need to be thinking more outside the box and creatively, because ultimately, if we're paying attention to this stuff and we're connecting more with people around us, we're all stronger. Like, what if this stuff happens and you don't even like your neighbor,
Right. And you both survived, and
and
now you got to share.
It's kind of like, get out there, get to know people, and become comfortable, see the world as a friendlier place. And,
for sure.
So anyway, that's just my whole take on it.
I think we need to change the title of this episode to Conspiracy Theory.
Yes. No, you know what? Okay. I have decided that I'm not going to apologize for spouting out conspiracy theories.
I don't
they're
either.
becoming more true and more true all the time.
They're calling them truths. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're predicting
Conspiracy
the future.
Truths, that's right.
Conspiracy truths.
Exactly.
I'll put that on a
Not
t-shirt.
theories.
And it's really good that they were talking about the history, the dating, because Brett, as an evolutionary biologist, is concerned about and has to know about the historical evolution of these animals and humans. And so that's a big part of what he deals with and needs to know. So I'm glad they brought that up and put that in his awareness.
Yeah.
Because, Brett's looking for the evidence of that. Like he looks at, I don't know, how genes have changed, or what are the modifications that allowed this species to survive over time. But in the book, they talk about
in the origin story.
Yes, they'll talk about gaps where you have Homo whatever it is, and then all of a sudden you don't see anything. There's no record of anything, and you have this new species of humans, and so there's they call it the missing link or whatever. There are these missing links, and they said you're not going to find anything because it was a reset of humanity, and so. You were already upgraded. You're upgraded, and you didn't have that little piece of
thing that was going wonky.
Right. So that's a really good nugget to be introduced to Brett's brain. I like that.
Oh, he did such a good job with the the whole interview. Like, I just found it really fascinating.
And he's open. He doesn't judge. Like, he's an atheist. I think he's not about this consciousness stuff. He doesn't understand the metaphysical at all, but he won't judge it. Matter of fact, he and Heather just had a podcast recently that they were talking about religion and how important that is to humanity, even if he doesn't believe it from a less than metaphorical. He says even the metaphor of it is critical and important to humans and their their happiness and their evolution. So he's open to all of that kind of stuff. I did send him a copy a couple of years ago when Love Notes first came out, because if you watch his podcast, you'll notice they always have their dog or their cat that crawls on the table. Like, we should bring our cat and have him crawl on the table, or laying behind them. So they're very much animal lovers.
Cleaning himself behind us.
So I thought, I'm going to just put this in their awareness. I have no idea if they got it. It went to a P.O. box somewhere, or if they put it on the bookshelf, or if they gave it away or threw it away, who knows? Because it's definitely outside of their comfort zone, but it landed in their hands, I hope.
That's right.
And at least energetically opened something there, right?
You gotta try.
So now I'm wondering, origin story, maybe I should send that one too. Well, they probably already think I'm a kook. What difference does it make?
I would love for Graham Hancock to get that. I would just be curious what he would do with that.
I sent it to Greg Braden via his publicist or whoever, and she assured me that he would get a copy of it.
He would get it.
And whether he reads it or whatever he does.
Thanks.
Yeah, who knows? But it doesn't matter. You never know. You just got to put it out there, right?
Yeah.
All right. So all of this is kind of leading up to Mother Earth and what she's doing.
Oh, okay.
We keep hearing about vortices and portals being open now. And that reminds me, the Bermuda Triangle thing, I think we asked about that in a channeling once, and they told us that it was a portal, basically. And so those ships they went into like a wormhole type of thing.
Yeah.
And disappeared.
Did you say whether the people actually lived?
I don't know. I don't remember if I asked that or not. But they exist somewhere else.
Another timeline.
At least they did. Yeah.
It's going to be this whole graveyard of boats that have just gone dunk.
Right.
No, sorry.
On some
I'm seeing like a whole Twilight Zone thing.
Well,
there's a timeline of a bunch of boats and planes just milling about. Like, what the hell am I doing here? Oh my God. But anyway, and I don't remember. What? Go ahead.
I was going to say there's a couple movies on Netflix there's a movie on Netflix.
I'm thinking
1889.
Yeah, the ones that did that other one. You know what? This is going to be people's favorite podcast because we are going there and talking about this stuff.
If it stays up.
Yeah.
I think, we're good.
It's going to be fine.
We're going to, send positive energy that it stayed up.
We haven't covered any
because
weird
once
topics.
we get big, once we get on their radar,
well, that's when they'll pull it down.
then they'll be like,
Well,
hey.
you were saying something, and I started to crack up because I was going to say, "What do you mean, like VACCI?"
Oh yeah.
I was going to spell it out. Just
No.
Because you were spelling
like-
everything
We
out.
call that the big V. We call that
That's like when you have a child and you're trying to trying to talk to your spouse about something and you have to spell it out, and then the kid's looking at you like,
Speaking of getting big, go ahead and hit that thumbs up because that helps the algorithm and it helps more people see this. So like and subscribe. Thank you very much.
Please, thank you.
Okay.
Back to general programming. Here we go.
Okay. So what about these?
I don't remember if we talked about this on a podcast, but recently we've had a lot of pet channeling sessions and
A lot.
3 times in a row almost, these animals had transitioned prematurely. And the reason that they did was to help with a greater mission with Mother Earth and these vortexes opening. So in other words, because of what is happening, these vortexes that were dormant for a long time in our history, like the ones up and down the East Coast and between the East Coast and Europe, because that used to be one landmass.
Yeah.
And there were vortexes there, and then it split. So there's like a piece of the vortex on one side and a piece on the eastern coast. And those are coming back around and becoming active again to bring in the energies and stuff for us, for the planet to shift. And so animals are helping Mother Earth with this process. And so this is happenstance. We had no idea this was happening, but all of a sudden we had our friend who watches, I don't know if I called her out. I don't want to mention it, but at any rate, her beloved animal passed, her dog passed, or ran away, I should say, and she wasn't able to find the dog, sadly. And when she finally felt secure and healed enough, because it was traumatic, to have a session and to contact that pet, we talked to him, and he said, he was the first one that opened this whole idea up. He said, he was being called. He didn't know from whom or by whom or why, but he was being called and he just had to run, and he basically ran out of his body, which again leads to another tangent that animals can transition themselves for greater purposes, like our goats did. They can do that on their own if they wish. And so anyway, he transitioned himself and he's...
Sorry, I'll go back to that. Like our goats did, but I'm going to keep going. Go ahead. Yeah, stay with your topic.
He's working with Mother Earth on opening the vortices and holding them open in that part of Montana. There's going to be some kind of shift, something going on with the land. It won't be like a devastating crack, like you would see in an earthquake or something like that.
How far from Yellowstone?
I don't know. They said it wouldn't be anything hazardous or dangerous
She's northern.
or anything like that.
Yeah, but Wyoming's right under. Wyoming is here, Montana, and then Wyoming, isn't it?
I believe so.
Isn't
I don't know off the top of my head.
I didn't pass my geography stuff very
Forgive
well.
us. Okay. At any rate, so this happened in Montana. Then we talked to...
But I know where you're going with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And probably there's stuff happening at Yellowstone too in regards to all of this, I would think, because we have volcanoes doing stuff, we have earthquakes,
Right.
all kinds of planet stuff. So then we went to we didn't go to Egypt, not yet anyway. Then we had a session in Egypt with a cat. And that cat was only 4 years old and it transitioned also.
Ooh.
And it was helping to open vortices in Egypt in that area. Then, not probably a week later, it was Arizona, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Arizona or New Mexico, one of those. Same thing, another animal that transitioned fairly early and was holding energy in that area. So all these vortices across the planet are starting to open up, and our animals, do you remember, we've talked about this, in the channeling sessions, the monthly channeling sessions, I asked about 2 months ago about these animals that are circling and the fish that are circling. That's what they're indicating, where these portals and vortices are opening. So all of the animals are playing, including our pets, are playing a huge role in this happening.
Support system from Mother Earth.
Right. And so then my friend Iris And I'm saying her name because it said, she asked me to ask this question in the May channeling this month. Go back and listen to that. You'll see where there are vortices opening in her area, which is New Jersey. And so and this is animal related, she said one night she's listening to what she thought were animal sounds outside of the house, and she was listening intently. She couldn't figure out what animal that was. She had never heard it. So then she's thinking, maybe this is coming from another reality or another realm or whatever. So I said, I'll be happy to ask that. She's like, go ahead and ask. So I asked it, and in the collective channeling for May, they said it was about the energy of the vortices, but she is going to be attuning to that energy so that she can help Mother Earth with that vortice. So, but it still has an animal link because it was the animal idea that it was, the animal
brought it
noise.
into her awareness.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is just wild, and it's being confirmed by all of our client sessions.
Yeah,
and
that's pretty trippy.
reports of it's just amazing.
So if you guys are experiencing any interesting anomalies with your animals, or tune into them, I mean, sit with them for a bit, or just hang out with them and just see what you're sensing. It might be that you've got some very strong energies around you on your property, on wherever you're at. So.
Yeah, I think in the case of Egypt, the cat that had transitioned is going to work with her. She's a light worker. It's going to work with her with the energies, and that was a whole unique story.
And all around the pyramids and whatnot. Yeah,
I know when my two, and I never asked you guys about this, but I know when my two old lady kitty cats, when they went within like 3 weeks of each other. I mean, one of them, she was so old, but she was just going to keep living out of sheer bitchiness. Like she was that kind of we called her shitty kitty. So but when she started to go down,
God rest her soul.
But but she had chronic kidney disease for like 7 years. Like she was losing
still
her
hung
teeth.
in there. Yeah.
Wow.
But the other one was fine, was literally fine. And then it's almost like it was a virus given to her or something, because she was 2 years younger. And then after Echo went, then Isis just suddenly declined real fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was like, there was something it was such a strange experience. And I just, but they were older, but I just wonder, like it was such a strange
Well, they have a
thing
bond, and they know that, that they support each other so strongly on this side that, there's.
No, they hated each other.
But
They still had an energetic bond.
I know. But what we know of them and
Yeah.
Two totally.
Yeah, but that's what happened with our goats. We had
the
two-
goats.
They were about
They didn't just die because
they were
you
about
were kind
age
of done
10.
with them.
Oh
no, God, no.
Okay.
No, but they were, so they
we
lived
loved those
longer
guys.
than what you would normally expect fainting. We had two.
They were
goats.
fainting.
because they were spoiled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lived a good life. I mean, they were probably
They were about 10.
10, 11 years old. And that's
Buddy
a
and
good
Lily,
love. Yeah.
and they were only about 4 months different. I think they had the same dad and
Yes.
different moms,
Yes, I
so they were
believe so.
half siblings. But shortly after we started channeling pets, we talked to the both of them, and I asked Lily, who was a little bit younger and a little more spry, but he was starting to get a little bit old, and I said, what's going to happen? You guys are so bonded that I'm a little concerned if one dies before the other. Can you tell me how you might handle that? How will that work? And I remember Lily saying, it'll be really difficult, but I think I'll be able to go on. And Buddy's getting tired, and I can sense that, but I'll be okay. I might, they don't really mourn or grieve the way we think of that, but I'll be sad, but I'll be able to go on. So she literally said she'd be able to go on, right? And it wasn't but a couple of months after that.
Yeah, maybe 2 or 3 months later.
That you went out there and were
Evan
went out there?
Evan,
and we were devastated.
Yeah, Evan, our son, we had left the house for some errands, and he had messaged me, and he said, "Hey, when you get home, I'm going to need your hand with something." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." I get home, and so he brings me around back, and so Buddy was in the pen, Lily was outside. So there was so I looked him over, and there were no signs of any sort of animal strike or anything like that. Like
if both of them die at the same time in the evening, we're thinking, okay, maybe a snake got both of them, or maybe they both ate something bad, or whatever you think.
But
how could they both?
Right, there was no signs that they ate something that would make them, aspirate or anything like that. So
That is just
the only thing at the immediate moment, the only thing I figured was Buddy passed. Lily freaked out and was like, I gotta go. I'm punching my ticket. And she just, through just heartbreak,
Right. And we did talk to them a couple of weeks after that, and they confirmed that that's what happened. Yeah. She said, I thought that I'd be able to go on, but once I saw that Buddy had passed, I wanted to go be with him.
Yeah.
And so she transitioned herself. And I'll tell you, they kind of did us a favor in retrospect, because it's very demoralizing to have to dispose of the body of a large animal, like people who have to try to bury a horse it's next to impossible. And
we live pull out a tractor.
We live here on a low water table. We can't just dig a hole and bury. So the only other option is to take them to the dump,
landfill,
which is awful. And so had we had to do that 2 times in like a year or something, it would have been even worse.
Yeah.
So the fact that we were able to grieve them both at the same time and dispose of their bodies at the same time and whatever was a little bit easier, even though it was awful.
Yeah.
And we miss them. I miss them running up every time we'd walk out, and we'd give them some carrots and different foods.
And slam their door and they go boom.
You don't even have to do that. You don't even have to do that. You could just kind of.
They're really funny. If you've never watched myotonic goats, fainting goats, get on YouTube. You'll be busting out laughing, and
you'll go down a rabbit hole that you'll just be crying laughing for the rest of the afternoon.
You just wonder how in the world they don't get concussions and stuff. And
they are, unfortunately, it is the breed itself is to be sacrificial. That's that's
awful.
And it's meant they're meant to be integrated with sheep and livestock that has, and I hate to say it this way, but has a greater value. And if the flock gets attacked, well, the flock runs off, they drop over, and the wolf or the coyote or whatever, the prey.
That ain't a good topic to end this. We could have talked about something else before we end this episode, because that's depressing.
You don't have anything else on there, do you?
Oh, yeah. Well, the other reason you're going to want to watch the May Collective Channeling is because we talk about the Malaysian flight that disappeared 10 years ago.
What brought that
another conspiracy theory?
I don't know. Allison went down a rabbit hole, I guess.
Well, because there are recent videos out there.
Not recent. They're really not recent.
Okay, well, they're coming back around again, I should say.
They're
recent.
The way he said that, it's like, apparently they've discussed this before.
Yes.
No, not with me.
Well, I told you that night.
But I think they came out in 2014. No, this happened in 2014.
Has it been that long?
Yeah. They came out, I think, around 16 or 17. Is when these
there are these videos of the flight going through the sky, these 3 round orbs circling it, and then it disappears off the screen. And they're claiming that our government knows how to create wormholes and created a wormhole to get rid of the plane to scare another nation.
We all know how well that how good that happened and took place on what the Montauk Project or the
that did not work well, but that was many years ago, decades ago. So a lot of people are believing something.
Yeah, it was like
a lot of people are believing that was true. And so I've seen some recent videos and people talking about it, and I thought, wow, this is fascinating. So I asked that question this month, and you can listen to the answer.
Oh, wow, teaser.
Yeah.
She's good at that.
Are you going to put the link below in the description so that they can?
It's probably right. Yeah, it's not
we
far.
can do that. Yeah.
Just look for the
different playlist. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a different playlist, but yes.
And in that same monthly channeling, we talked about the U.S. Constitution and its writers, and that's another fascinating answer.
Okay, because that would really interest me. And this is not conspiracy theory.
So you're saying on your drive you haven't listened to that channeling yet on your drive up here?
No, I dang so much. That was
you listened to Brett.
Right.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, geomagnetic was hitting me. So I'm like, what is this thing that's affecting me?
We'll forgive you.
Thank you. But
by the way, that evening, for those that Zoomed live with us, John Oldblocker asked about you.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
He was asking how you were doing.
Oh, wondering where the heck I was.
That's
Probably.
I was off in Texas and then Oklahoma trying to avoid tornadoes.
I told him that's what was happening. You were traveling. He goes, I didn't say where she was. I just said how you were, I think he said.
That's so sweet. I love that.
Yeah, that was nice.
Oh, okay. So we're going to go back to the not conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So you know that the United States is a corporation.
Oh, no. We're not going down.
Yeah, we're not going to unspool that one. We're not going to unspool that one.
That's another podcast. We're too far in.
There's a whole, and I won't get into it there, but there's so much more going on there that you just go, Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
You want to get pulled quick? That's how you get pulled quick. So yeah, no, we don't want to.
No, but that's a legit thing.
Yeah, well, true, but
All of it
Just so you
can
know,
be
there's
legit.
paperwork and everything. So it is legit. You can look it up in the articles of incorporation. It's
Yes,
there.
I know.
Yeah.
It's legit.
Right. And then we'll get,
I
then we get into the Social Security cards and everything
So
else.
yeah, so what I want to know, yeah,
And our taxes.
born a debtor. Okay, I'm going to stop. But when you channeled, the writers of the Constitution, I've always wondered, how much did they perceive was going to be abused by this, and how many? Okay,
It's a fascinating answer.
And there is a law that is being passed, and I'm going to stay super light about. I'm not jumping deep into it, but it has to do with a certain country that is a religious country, and how we view what we say about that country. I'm trying to be really generic.
Yeah.
What we say about that country, and whether it's considered what do you call when it's religious persecution? Whether it's anyway.
Where you can get asylum, you mean?
No. Like not a bigot, but
yeah, I know what you're talking
anyway,
about.
my brain, because I don't go there. But anyway, but what's important about it is how this piece of legislation can then affect all these other things. And this is what I mean by
the trickle down.
Yeah,
effect.
just be aware. Like,
Well, they tell you one truth and they have all these other things behind it.
yeah, and all of that to say that it's like we have to pay attention, and just it's not that you have to be an expert in any one thing or that you have to buy into any of the stuff we talk about. But it's just having an awareness and letting the information wash over you, because sometimes, like, there's lots of things that I didn't quite buy into. And then it's like, oh, and here's this piece of evidence. When your guides want you to know something, the evidence will
starts
just
stacking up.
Yeah, I mean, because it's just crazy how it all just starts to flow in. It's like, you're supposed to know this right now. Now, it doesn't mean you're supposed to go out and become an activist or, or like.
And you may not even be supposed to believe it, but it's supposed to be in your awareness for whatever reason.
Exactly.
And that's what the collective said about the Malaysia flight, and all of that was about discernment, how important it is, how moving forward with AI, it's going to be even more important to use your discernment.
Yeah, that's a whole other, you know what, we might have to do like a show.
We may have to revisit the AI show and actually.
Yeah, and well, like, and in there, like, go, okay, look at this, real or not, and according to that could be a whole other
Hey,
thing.
we can do that. I'll say what it is, and you hold up the real or not real card.
Yeah.
False or true. What do you think? And if you match, then maybe we were onto something.
Well, because it's becoming a very fascinating world, isn't it?
It is.
And some people go, oh my God, like my mom's like, it's good to be 85. It's good, she's on her way out. And I'm sitting there going, this is such an exciting time to live. If you can't,
we're going to have somebody in the audience saying, I'm 85 and I'm not on my way out.
Her dance card is full, and she's not accepting any more dances.
Yeah. Well, but here's the thing: my mom's 85, and you would not know it.
Right.
Like,
you guys were gallivanting all around the
spry.
Southwest.
Yeah. She dyes her hair, and she's happening and still selling real estate.
Her birthday's next weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. And she'll be 85 or 86.
Okay, that's scary.
You told me we had to tape podcast this weekend because next weekend's your birthday.
But you remembered the reason why. Like, I wouldn't even remember the reason why.
I care about you, Samantha. My gosh.
Tear.
I do care about you.
Thank you.
And that's one of the little things that's stuck in my nugget. Because a lot of stuff doesn't, right, honey?
Oh, she's like Teflon.
It's all about Samantha. Well.
It's like Teflon. Slides right off.
A much better note to conclude on. This has been fun. We went a whole hour because there was just so much. You never know, right?
Fun.
When you start.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for joining us. It's always a pleasure. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and
Thumbs
we'll
up
see
and do all those
next
things.
time.
See you guys.